Have you ever organized your day around bathrooms? Have you ever skipped a trip, left a social event early, or worried about a meeting because you weren't sure whether you'd be able to use the restroom? I understand. I did that for more than 50 years. My name is Michael Hurd, and today I want to share my story. Not because it's unique, but because if you're struggling with shy bladder syndrome or paruresis, I want you to know two things. You're not alone, and freedom is possible. I remember experiencing my shy bladder when I was in first grade. I would wait outside the boys' restroom until everybody had left. And then I would look under the stall doors just to make sure no one else was inside before I felt comfortable enough to use the bathroom. What I didn't know is that my first grade teacher was standing there holding the door. She caught me looking under the stalls. I don't remember exactly what she said, but I remember the shame. I remember the embarrassment. And in many ways, I carried those feelings with me for decades. As I grew older, shy bladder became just part of my life. I made it through high school, I made it through college, but there were countless moments where I avoided situations that most people never had to think twice about. Work became one of the biggest challenges for me. Not the work itself. I always loved my work. I've been fortunate to have successful careers and build businesses and perform at a high level. But underneath all of that success was a constant stream of thinking about my shy bladder, business trips, airports, hotels, customer visits, meetings, even vacations. Before almost every trip, one question would be running through my mind. Where am I going to be able to use a bathroom? I remember walking through airports looking for the one restroom that felt safe. Even using a stall could be difficult. The thought that someone might hear me, might notice me, or see me through the crack in the stall door was sometimes enough to make me freeze. I might find a single use or family restroom and think that would solve the problem. But then another thought would come. Did someone see me walk in? Is someone waiting outside? Those thoughts never seem to stop. Looking back, shy bladder shaped so many of the decisions I made, but the hardest part wasn't the bathroom. It was carrying the secret. I believed that I was the only person in the world who couldn't do something as simple and natural as urinate in a public restroom. The shame was exhausting. Like many people with shy bladder, I developed coping strategies. I tried to trick myself into going, and sometimes those strategies worked, and most of the time they didn't. Year after year, I lived as though my shy bladder was in charge of my life. And then something happened that changed everything. I was flying home from a business trip in Las Vegas, and about 2 hours into the flight, I desperately needed to use the restroom. One of my coping strategies had always been dehydrating myself before traveling. And this time it hadn't worked. I waited in line with about 10 people ahead of me. Eventually, I got to the airplane restroom and I just couldn't go. I simply couldn't. And I walked back to my seat, and honestly, I wanted to cry. I was frustrated, I was ashamed, and I was tired of living this way. And sitting there, I made a decision. I texted my wife and I simply wrote, I want help. She was one of the very few people who knew about my shy bladder. And when I got home, she had told me she had found something. She had discovered the International Paruresis Association. And I remember opening the website and realizing there are other people like me. And for the first time in my life, I understood that I wasn't alone. I attended a support group. I participated in a workshop. I learned helpful techniques, including graduated exposure and breath holding. And all of these things played an important role in my journey, but something else began to change as well. Over time, I started to see my experience differently. I began to understand how much fear, anticipation, and the stories I had been carrying for decades were shaping my experience. And I also began to see that the thoughts and feelings could come and go without always needing to control what I did next. The understanding didn't replace the techniques, it changed the way that I moved through life. Instead of seeing every anxious thought or uncomfortable feeling as proof that I couldn't go, I gradually became less afraid of the experience itself. Not overnight, but steadily I began to discover more freedom. And today I live with a freedom I honestly never believed was possible. I wrote a book called Feeling the Flow, Creating Freedom from Shy Bladder Syndrome. I've coached people from around the world. I've served on the board of directors of the International Paruresis Association, and I coach in the IPA's Shy Bladder Center. But perhaps the thing that means the most to me is being able to tell somebody else, I understand. And that's why I created this channel. I don't want anyone else to spend decades believing that they're alone. So if you're watching this today, maybe you've struggled for months, maybe years, maybe decades. Wherever you are in your journey, I'm glad you found this channel. I hope you'll subscribe. And for more information and resources, visit my website at michaelrhurd.com. Until next time, I'm Michael Hurd, the Shy Bladder Coach, and thanks for watching.